I practice finding fireballs millions of times a day, and yet I still can't light a single frickin' mosquito coil. The mosquitoes in my house literally buzz in my face, calling me a little bitch. My classmates call me the weakest mage in human history, but what these nerds don't know is that I randomly awakened an S-class cheat code, the SSG Divine Thorn Talent. I get 1 skill point every single second. While other losers get single-digit skill points from clearing an entire grueling dungeon, I'm just breathing and getting paid. At this rate, I can upgrade any basic bottom-tier spell into a cataclysmic world-ending forbidden spell. Let's rewind to the awakening ceremony. The school goddess, Jania, who always acted like her poop didn't stink, awakened a rare class, Mind Controller, instantly snagging the high-level thought manipulation skill. Meanwhile, I awakened the most basic NPC-ass class imaginable, Mage, with the starter spell, Fireball. Just as the crowd started clowning on me, a robotic voice rang out in my head telling me I had awakened the SSG Divine Thorn Talent, giving me 1 skill point per second that scales with experience and unlocks more features later. I stood there completely dumbfounded, doing some quick math. I don't need to grind dungeons or do side quests. If I literally just go AFK and take a nap for a day, I rake in 86,400 skill points. That means the moment I learn a new skill, I only need 24 hours to max it out. Meanwhile, the peanut gallery downstairs started gossiping, saying they lived for the downfall of the class genius and that I'd peak in high school. Even the school beauty, Jania, looked at me with pity. I was bewildered. Traumatized? Depressed? Bro, do you not see me trying to hold back the biggest grin of my life? I had to get the hell out of there immediately before I lost it and started laughing like a maniac. With this talent, a chaotic idea popped into my head. I'm going to max out Fireball into a forbidden spell. Why? Because in a month, the country is hosting the annual 7-day National Professional Exam. For the next few weeks, I locked myself in my room. I didn't go anywhere. I just stared at my bank account of over 600,000 skill points. Taking a deep breath, I opened the Fireball skill tree and started smash-clicking the upgrade button. The icon on my screen flashed violently with the glow of evolution. The system notified me that I spent 100,000 skill points to upgrade and acquired a new spell called Heavenly Flame Dragon Arts. The generic Fireball was now a level 7 spell, and instantly a wave of scorching heat washed over my body. But when I checked the next level, Fire Spirit Incarnation, my jaw dropped. The upgrade cost was 500,000 points. The scaling was getting absolutely astronomical. I paused and looked at my passive skills instead, Mana Economy and Fast Casting. At base level, they only reduce mana cost and casting time by 10%. But here's the problem. My shiny new level 7 Heavenly Dragon spell has a 20-second cast time and a 2-hour cooldown. Worse, it costs 30,000 mana to cast, and my current cap is a whopping 100 mana. I couldn't even cast the damn thing. I shifted gears and started dumping points into Mana Economy. The dinging notification sound spammed my brain. After burning 100,000 points, it evolved into a new passive called Mana Storm. The first effect slashed the mana cost of all spells by 70%. The second effect multiplied my max mana pool from all sources by 7, while restoring 7% of my max mana per second. The third effect gave me a chance once every 8 hours to cast any spell below level 9 for free. And just like that, the instant cast build was complete. 0 mana cost, 0 cast time, pure destruction. It is an absolutely disgusting combo. Smiling like a supervillain, I finally stepped out of my house. I stocked up on a mountain of food and water like I was preparing for a zombie apocalypse. Once everything was packed, I headed out to the wilderness. I skipped right past the Breeze Meadow, which is basically the tutorial zone for level 1 scrubs, and marched straight into a much higher level area, the Howling Forest. The monsters here are all level 9 or above, look like visual nightmares, and will absolutely jump you on sight. Suddenly, a foul stench drifted down from above. I looked up and saw a gigantic python staring right at me, unhinging its bloody jaws to take a bite. I was totally unfazed, calmly prepping a spell to vaporize it instantly. But right at that critical moment, a painfully familiar wave of heat blasted from behind me. A fireball smacked the python right in the face. The python shrieked, its aggro instantly shifting, and it lunged furiously toward the source of the attack. Before it could get close, a massive roaring fire dragon of a fireball slammed into it. The giant python was roasted alive, its massive body twitching once before dropping dead. That's when I saw the two culprits. One was a young guy who looked like a college student, and next to him was a middle-aged mage wearing gray robes. The kid looked at me with an amused smirk and asked his companion, "Uncle Cho, how was my form just now?" The mage replied, "Young man, your fireball was incredibly precise. With enough grind, you'll be soloing this forest in no time." I rolled my eyes. Honestly, without that high-level gray-robed babysitter, that kid would have been snake food. There was no way a basic fireball upgraded to maybe level 3 was going to let him casually stroll through this death zone. Flattered by the praise, the kid grew even cockier, looking at me and saying, "Hey, I just saved your life. Where's my thank you?" I frowned. Why did this dude just steal my kill? Because of levels oppression, he could instantly see I was only level 1. To him, I was just a clueless noob who was bound to get wrecked out here. How dare I be so arrogant, right? But before he could talk more trash, the older mage intervened. "Young man, your level is too low for this area. It's incredibly dangerous. You should leave immediately." With that, they walked off. Honestly, getting kill sniped is annoying, but since they actually thought they were helping, I decided to let it slide. As I pushed deeper into the woods, the monster density got ridiculous. Suddenly, 4 or 5 giant pythons dropped from the canopy. Fireball! In an instant, a dozen terrifying basin-sized fireballs bombarded them. The fire elements in this world only need a single thought for me to delete high-level monsters from existence. Then, 2 grizzly bears tried to ambush me from the bushes, rushing out with a roar. The next second, they were impaled by my instant cast flames. A notification popped up. "Congratulations, you leveled up to level 2. You have 10 free attribute points." A white light enveloped me. I dumped all 10 points into my mental stat, which instantly boosted my max mana pool by 700 points. I checked my stats. With only 20 HP, I still felt like a glass cannon, but I already had a hilarious solution for that. I began to chant and a massive glowing hexagonal magic circle erupted on the ground. Out stepped a behemoth standing nearly 20 feet tall. It was a level 6 fire-type summoning spell, the Molten Flame Demon. It literally summons a demon general straight from the fire elemental plane. The second I cast it, my mana bar tanked to absolute 0. But once I saw its stats, it was worth every drop. This absolute unit had a whopping 500,000 HP. Introducing this guy to the forest was a literal dimensional tier wipe for the local monsters. Now feeling completely safe, and with my passive regenerating 7% of my max mana every single second, my bottomed out mana bar refilled in the blink of an eye. I started chanting again. I summoned a second flame demon, and then a third. 3 demons was my current limit. I thought about it for a second and gave 2 of them a simple command. Go on a search and destroy patrol and kill every monster you see in this entire forest. I kept the third one right next to me as a personal bodyguard. I continued walking deeper into the woods and my UI started losing its mind with XP notifications. I had only taken a few steps when white light flashed around me again. "Congratulations, you leveled up to level 3. Then 5 or 6 more flashes of white light erupted in rapid succession. "Congratulations, you leveled up to level 7. Holy crap. I hit level 7 in literally a few seconds. What on earth were those 2 rogue demons doing out there? How were they pulling in this massive tsunami of experience points? While I was having an existential crisis over how broken my life was, the school goddess, Genia, was also grinding in the Howling Forest. Thanks to her rare psychic masterclass, she had already carried herself to level 6. Her leveling speed actually completely embarrassed all our peers. But even so, she was a joke compared to my automated demon meat grinders. Deep in the woods, Genia used her psychic powers to stun a forest grizzly, then used a telekinetic strike to slice it down for the final blow. After finishing the fight, her mana was completely drained. She sat down on a log, chugging a mana potion to slowly bring her blue bar back up. Taking a breather, the face of the guy who had academically dominated her for 3 straight years, the guy she hated yet couldn't stop thinking about, slowly drifted into her mind. What is that guy even doing right now? Is he seriously just letting himself completely fall apart like that? While Genia was lost in these thoughts, the forest suddenly went absolutely feral. Endless roars echoed through the trees, and the entire ground started shaking like a high-magnitude earthquake. Genia snapped her eyes open. A literal stampede. A monster horde was tearing through what was supposed to be a safe, low-level training zone. What the hell were these monsters running from? As the monster tide stampeded past, Genia's jaw hit the floor. Chasing the horde was a terrifying 20-foot-tall behemoth dripping with molten lava. Her survival instinct screamed at her to move, and fortunately, she was able to use her telekinesis to jet out of there at Mach speed. Right then, a zone-wide emergency broadcast blared through the entire howling forest. The Monster Disaster Response Center in Jean City declared a level 2 emergency. They had detected 2 monster stampedes with a terrifying boss-level entity of unknown strength driving them from behind. All local professionals were ordered to evacuate immediately. Genia's face went completely pale. A level 2 alert was the kind of apocalypse scenario she had only ever read about in textbooks. It meant the entire city was about to get raided. At the border where the meadow met the forest, an army of professional soldiers was already stacked on the front lines, fully buffed and ready for war. The plan was simple. The moment those 2 molten demons breached the tree line, everyone would focus fire. But just as the soldiers finished off a few stray monsters at the edge, things went totally sideways. The 2 molten demons burst from the tree line, saw that these humans had just stolen their farm, and let out a deafening metallic roar. These demons hadn't actually planned on attacking humans, but seeing their loot stolen, it was on. They raised their massive glowing hands and started yeeting liquid hot magma like confetti onto the frontline professionals. Luckily, there was a thick, unassuming tank healer in the squad named Fatty Wang. He whipped out a holy staff flashing with divine light and cast a massive golden shield over the front line. The moment the lava smacked the shield, the barrier started melting like butter on a hot skillet. Fatty Wang frantically stacked another layer of holy light shield, barely managing to save everyone's bacon. How the hell were they supposed to kill monsters this terrifying? Suddenly, a booming, incredibly ancient voice echoed from the heavens, telling everyone to hold their fire. The voice commanded them not to attack the monsters in the stampede, and absolutely not to touch those 2 molten demons, but just to let them cook and clear the horde freely. Everyone was flabbergasted. The speaker was none other than the strongest man in Jean City, the president of the Professionals Alliance, a rank 4 Grand Mage named Jean Swan. Hearing the old man's orders, the Alliance soldiers immediately stood down. Sure enough, once the humans stopped drawing aggro, the demons stopped raging. Instead, they went right back to methodically harvesting the monster horde like combine harvesters in a wheat field. In barely 10 minutes, thousands of monsters were turned to ash, and the 2 molten demons casually turned around and strolled back into the forest, thoroughly satisfied. A city-ending crisis was averted just like that, and every professional let out a massive sigh of relief. President Jean Swan flexed by flying down from the clouds riding a majestic Pegasus. He stared at the retreating figures of the 2 molten demons, his eyes filled with pure envy and awe. Fatty Wang approached him trembling and asked if they were cooked, wanting to know what those things actually were. Jean Swan shook his head and told him they were completely wrong. Those 2 lava rock beasts weren't wild monsters at all. They were the summoned minions of a high-level archmage. Fatty Wang was stunned, asking if that meant a level 6 archmage had casually arrived in our local starter zone. Jean Swan reminisced, looking off into the distance, explaining that decades ago when he was studying at the Pantheon, his mentor was a level 6 archmage. That was the only time he had ever seen someone summon a Balrog like that. He called it the ultimate endgame skill every mage dreams of learning, though a scrub like him would probably never have that kind of luck. A look of deep regret washed over him, but he quickly made a mental note that he had to find a way to meet this legendary elder. If he could get even a single tip from him, his account would be set for life. But just as the high-level squad was about to wrap up and leave, a terrifying, reality-warping surge of magical energy exploded from the deepest part of the forest. Jean Swan felt a fire element radiation that was infinitely more oppressive and terrifying than the molten demons. Someone in the crowd screamed, telling everyone to look at the sky and asking if that was a freaking dragon. High above them, a catastrophic fire dragon with a wingspan stretching hundreds of yards materialized in the clouds, radiating pure, holy elemental power. It was made of nothing but raw, concentrated fire, looking utterly immense and sacred. President Jean Swan felt his brain completely short-circuit, and his mind went totally blank as he stared up at the absolute madness unfolding above them. A tier 7 spell. That meant the entity currently chilling in the forest wasn't just some high-level archmage, but a literal tier 7 saint of law. Basically a walking, talking nuclear warhead. Within seconds, pure panic gripped the entire area, and everyone started running for their lives like a black Black Friday sale gone horribly wrong. Meanwhile, literally 1 minute earlier, I had just strolled into the heart of the forest. Turns out I accidentally trespassed right into the local tiger mafia's territory and found myself completely surrounded by hundreds of swole, aggressive forest tigers. Suddenly, an absolutely terrifying roar echoed from a nearby cave. The next second, a massive tiger king stepped out, his body glittering with an emerald green aura. My eyes lit up. Jackpot. This dude was clearly the biggest, baddest boss in the entire forest. He let out a deafening growl and immediately swiped his paw, launching a dozen razor-sharp wind blades directly at me at terminal velocity. They slammed into my molten armor shield, instantly chunking my barrier for over 1,000 points. A smug smile crept onto my face. Finally, I found someone out here who actually hits back. This was the perfect opportunity to test my shiny new toys. Between my once-a-day 3-cast passive and my instant cast high-tier spell buff, this oversized house cat was the ultimate test dummy. But before I could even cast, 5 or 6 blinding pillars of white light erupted around my body. A system notification popped up. Congratulations, you have leveled up 5 times in a row and reached level 12. You have gained 53 attribute points. The Tiger King stood there, completely dumbfounded. You could practically see the dial-up internet loading icon over his head as he tried to figure out how this random human just aggressively power leveled right in front of his face. I nonchalantly pointed a single finger at the Tiger King. Instantly, the elemental fires in the atmosphere went absolutely berserk. The entire tiger pack lost its collective mind, sensing the imminent arrival of a literal apocalypse. Some of the adult tigers abandoned all dignity and started sprinting away on all fours, desperately trying to escape the blast zone. But let's be real, their only destination was despair. My tier 7 spell, Heavenly Flame Dragon Arts, covers a ridiculous amount of real estate, and because it's an instant cast build, there's 0 windup time. The attack speed was faster than anyone could comprehend. High up above us, the elemental dragon proudly raised its head and began puking massive waves of apocalyptic dragon fire across the zone. Everywhere the flames touched, life was instantly deleted and turned to ash. Half a minute later, the massive dragon silhouette slowly dissolved into the horizon. The entire army of tigers that had been flexing on me a minute ago was gone, reduced to floating ash. The Tiger King had also vanished, leaving behind a couple of gear drops and a white skill book. I picked up the gear, took a quick glance, and realized it was just low-level garbage. But the real prize was that book. It was a beginner-level wind spell called Air Leap, usable by mages. My eyes sparkled as I smashed the learn button. The system chimed, confirming I had unlocked the skill. Air Leap basically lets you summon an invisible burst of air to snipe enemies from a distance, and it's the absolute foundation for all wind mage builds. The only difference between Air Leap and a starter fireball is Air Leap is completely invisible and travels at hyperspeed, making it practically impossible for targets to dodge. The catch? Its base damage is only about half of a fireball. Still, it got me thinking, if a tier 7 spell can cause this level of catastrophic map-wiping destruction, just how horrifying would a tier A or a forbidden tier 9 spell be? Just thinking about it got me hyped, and without even realizing it, my automated demon squad had already boosted my account all the way to level 30. Reaching level 30 meant it was time to hit up the Gene City Career Transition Center to grab my 2nd class advancement quest, because the game literally locks your XP bar until you complete it. There was 0 point in staying here anymore. Just as I was about to crack open a teleportation scroll to recall back to town, a strange green glow in the distance caught my eye. I waved my hand, and the molten flame demon I had just dismissed back to the fire plane popped right back into reality. I pointed toward the glow, and the giant demon obediently lumbered over to investigate. Following it, I realized the source of the light was the exact cave the Tiger King had swaggered out of earlier. Pushing deeper into the cavern, my jaw dropped. The entire place was covered in countless emerald crystals growing right out of the cave walls, radiating an incredibly pure, raw wind elemental energy. I was ecstatic. Talk about hitting the jackpot. I never expected this overgrown kitty litter box to hold a secret treasure trove on top of a free skill book. Talk about an unexpected payday. If I flip these crystals on the open market, I bet I can fetch a pretty penny for them. Honestly, who needs a Balrog when you have a gold mine? I put my back into it and started mining the emerald wind crystals straight out of the cave walls, packing the massive chunks into my personal inventory slots. Once the room was cleared, I yanked out a town portal scroll, cracked it open, and let the magic wrap around me. When I opened my eyes, I was standing right in the Gene City teleportation hub. Home sweet home. I pulled up my dashboard and noticed I had passively racked up another 40 to 50,000 skill points. Since I had just unlocked that new win skill today, all I had to do was kill time for 24 hours and I'd have enough points to skyrocket it straight to tier 7. The next morning, I hit up the market and liquidated the green gold ore for a cool 120,000 credits. Suddenly, a system notification pinged my brain. Detection: financial assets have crossed the 100,000 threshold for the first time. Your SSS Rank Divine Thorn Talent has unlocked a new feature. Oh sweet, a new feature? I aggressively tapped open my talent interface to see what changed. The notification read, "New feature unlocked. You can now spend in-game currency to instantly purchase a 24-hour AFK skill point reward. Note, the price scales up with each consecutive purchase. Current cost for the first purchase, 10,000 summer coins." Holy crap, this is literally just a mobile game microtransaction feature. I can straight up pay to win my skill points now. I didn't even hesitate. I fully intended to bankrupt myself right then and there. I opened the interface and smashed the buy button. Ding! You have received the 24-hour Divine Thorn AFK reward, 86,400 skill points. At the exact same second, my phone buzzed in my pocket with a bank notification showing a 10,000 coin debit. Keep it rolling. I spammed that screen like crazy. I only stopped when the dreaded insufficient balance pop-up flashed in front of my face. Checking my transaction history, the last click alone had cost me over 40,000 coins. A sharp, physical pain shot through my chest. And just like that, it was back. The familiar, crushing feeling of being completely broke. Thankfully, checking my character sheet brought me immediate emotional comfort. My current spendable skill point balance was sitting at a juicy 425,821 points. Upgrading my tier 7 Heavenly Dragon spell to tier 8 requires a whopping 500,000 points, so I was still a bit short on that front. Instead, I shifted my attention to my new win skill, Air Leap. With a non-stop spammy chorus of ding, ding, ding ringing in my ears, I maxed out the win tree straight to tier 7. What blew my mind were the two new passive-active hybrids I picked up at tier 5 and tier 6. The tier 5 skill was Swift Wind Wings. It envelops your entire body in raw wind energy, generating an absolute visual blur that prevents enemies from tracking your actual physical hitbox. It drains 500 mana per second, has a 1.5 second cast time, and a 5-minute cooldown. But the best part? The wind currents literally form a pair of wings, giving you hyperspeed flight capabilities, while a swirling slipstream automatically deletes 3 incoming ranged attacks for you. A literal flight skill. What kind of gamer hasn't dreamed of flying? As for that secondary effect, blocking projectile attacks, it felt incredibly familiar. Isn't this just Yasuo's Wind Wall mixed with a Soraka build? Then there was the tier 6 skill, Vortex Flash, which honestly felt like it belonged to a completely different class. The description read, "Instantly dash in a targeted direction, executing a hyper-fast sprint attack." Looking at it, I knew this skill was designed purely for looking cool and flexing on people. But why the hell is this in a mage's kit? Am I supposed to carry a sword into battle now? Sure, a wizard staff can technically be used as a blunt melee weapon, but asking me to blink behind someone and start whacking them 100 times with a stick is a hilarious mental image. Whatever, moving on. I went over to the local auction house building to dump all the black iron gear I collected earlier. After selling off a dozen pieces, my bank account recovered by about 20,000 Axia Yuan. Next, I started scrolling through the shop UI to buy a basic utility book, Basic Appraise. The going rate was a hefty 18,992 yuan per book. I flipped through the listings and saw it was the only generic utility skill available, but charging nearly 20k for the most basic item scanner in the game is highway robbery. Still, you gotta bite the bullet and buy it. Without an appraisal skill, you risk accidentally vendor selling a legendary artifact like a total idiot. Besides, I still had hundreds of thousands of skill points burning a hole in my pocket. I could max this thing out instantly so it wouldn't suffer through a weak early game phase. I bit the bullet and bought the book. System: Basic Appraise learned successfully. New skill acquired. Art of Appraisal. Naturally, I didn't think twice about it. I started dumping hundreds of thousands of skill points into it until a massive, unprecedented world announcement flashed across my screen. Congratulations! You are the first player on the entire blue planet to max out the Art of Appraisal to the pinnacle level. You have been awarded a unique server-first Omni-class reward. Are you kidding me? There's a hidden achievement for this? Though, to be fair, I quickly realized why nobody in human history had ever chosen to waste 500,000 skill points on a basic item scanner. The reason for this unique award is simple. There's zero ROI on it. After all, nobody in their right mind is going to waste precious, hard-earned skill points on an item scanner instead of an actual combat skill. Having finalized that realization, I logged onto the network and opened my freshly unlocked, maxed out skill, now called Omnivision. The description was absolutely broken. Stare at a target for more than 3 seconds to completely ignore level differences, bypass all stealth, concealment, or illusion effects, and reveal all of their data. Additionally, if the target is an unappraised object or piece of gear, successful appraisal has a 10% chance to permanently upgrade its tier. My jaw hit the floor. The sheer utility of this skill was beyond illegal. I tested it on a random high-level player walking by. Exactly 3 seconds later, his entire character sheet, current status, and even his combat weaknesses were laid bare right in front of me like an open book. Calming my inner hype train, I headed over to accept my second-class advancement quest. The moment I walked into the bureau, a receptionist stepped forward with a warm smile, asking how she could assist a professional today. I told her I was there to take the Tier 2 advancement quest. The girl behind the glasses maintained her professional smile and asked for my official professional ID card. I rubbed the back of my neck, a bit embarrassed, and asked if my high school student ID would work instead, since I had just awakened my class and hadn't gotten the official paperwork process yet. The receptionist blinked, completely startled, and asked if I meant that I was a fresh rookie who had just awakened a week ago. I nodded. She looked like she had just seen a ghost. In all her years on the job, she had never seen a player hit the Tier 2 level cap in a single week. She quickly rushed through my paperwork and led me into one of the testing chambers, where a glowing blue essence stone was floating in the air. The moment I touched the stone, the system quest popped up, and I had to hold back a laugh. The supposed S-rank difficulty quest required me to hunt a level 60 boss. Level 60? That was literally lower level than a single one of my automated molten flame demons. Even if it was a world boss, my heavenly dragon spell would delete it from the server in one shot. To make it even more hilarious, the quest requirements allowed for a party of 3. The game was being way too generous. It was honestly giving me secondhand embarrassment for the developers. After finalizing the quest setup, I walked out of the advancement center and headed straight for the teleportation plaza. The magic runes flashed, and a second later, I materialized in the King Lanchi teleportation hub. The receptionist had given me the exact coordinates of the target, the Silent Reef of King Lanchi. My Swift Wind Wings is a Tier 5 wind spell. Wind spells already have a ridiculously short cast time, but thanks to my Eternal Divine Grace passive, any spell Tier 5 or below is an instant cast. I didn't hesitate for a second. I instant cast Swift Wind Wings, and a pair of glowing emerald wings erupted from my back. In a flash, I turned into a hyper-speed green shooting star, blasting directly toward the Silent Reef. Down in the bleak, desolate wasteland of the Silent Reef, packs of players were crowding around the central zone. This was the exact spawn point for the world boss, the Necromancer Knight. Guild members from the Mega Guilds were already barricading the area, shouting into megaphones, "The Lightning Guild has reserved this boss. Non-affiliates clear the area immediately." They were explicitly teaming up to bully the solo indie players. The solo players were furious, shouting back, "You think you guys own the world boss? Why the hell can't we enter?" The guild enforcer's face darkened as he snapped, "Yeah, actually we do. It belongs to the Lightning Guild. Try forcing your way through and see what happens." Against that kind of corporate gaming mafia behavior, the casual players were mad but completely powerless. The critical spawn window for the Necromancer Knight was officially open, and the top guilds obviously planned to hog 100% of the XP and loot for their own metrics. Suddenly, massive waves of black plague mist exuding a heavy aura of death began to suffocate the wasteland. At the same time, the Enforcer's guild chat exploded with frantic distress signals from the front line. "Situation critical. The squad leader needs backup. Get over here now." However, when the backup horde arrived at the boss pit, the scene waiting for them completely paralyzed the crowd. Countless player corpses lay scattered across the ground, which was now flooded with foul, toxic black water. Their weapons were shattered, their faces twisted in absolute agony, and their eyes were still wide open in death. They even spotted their own elite squad leader in the meat pile. It made absolutely no sense to them. This was a level 60 world boss they had successfully farmed dozens of times. How could they get squad wiped this fast? Before they could overthink it, the culprit responsible for the massacre stepped into view, the Necromancer Knight, Rivendell. Except his character model was suddenly 10 times larger than normal. Someone screamed, "Run! It's a mutation!" According to the lore, world bosses and dungeon bosses have a ridiculously low probability of being corrupted by the abyss, entering a mutated state. In this mode, the boss's level, stats, and skills scale up to an absolute nightmare tier. Before anyone could even turn to flee, Rivendell yanked the reins of his undead warhorse. The next second, a massive shockwave of necromantic mana erupted. The solid ground beneath the fleeing players was instantly swallowed by an endless swirling tide of black plague water. Countless phantom hands emerged from the dark sludge, grabbing the ankles of every professional trying to escape. And as the toxic water expanded, a scene that made their hair stand on end unfolded. The messy pile of player corpses on the ground began to twitch. Infused with dark necromantic energy, the dead players stood right back up, picked up their broken swords, and began muttering their own familiar combat spells against their former teammates. Except this time, they were fighting for Team Necromancer. Just as everyone was ready to log out of life, a crystal clear dragon roar shattered the atmosphere. The next second, a blinding orange light ripped through the dark mist, and a terrifying elemental dragon radiating sun-level heat spawned in the sky, vomiting dragon breaths down like a literal waterfall. The Necromancer Knight snapped his head up, his ghostly eyes reflecting the absolute unit in the sky. The toxic black puddle that was currently trapping everyone's ankles was instantly vaporized by the fiery blast, turning into puffs of black smoke at the speed of light. Floating up above, I let out a massive sigh of relief. Whew. Good thing I got here before they wiped. Looking down at the Necromancer Knight, I didn't even overthink it. I hit the macro and instant cast my Heavenly Dragon Arts Breath Attack right on his head. Once the flames cleared, I squinted. Wait, he didn't die? He barely even lost any health. Okay, this boss actually has some code behind him. I mean, I didn't expect a single Dragon Breath to completely delete a world boss, but I at least thought it would chunk him for half his health bar. Looks like I'm gonna have to hit him with the combo platter. I locked my eyes onto the boss, and thanks to my Omnivision hack, his true stats flashed on my screen. Necromancer Knight Rivendell, level 200, HP 100 million, mana 100,000, weakness, holy light, and audio-visual damage. I froze. Level 200? Wasn't this guy supposed to be a level 60 scrub? How did his level suddenly multiply like a bad crypto coin? Is this Abyssal Eatation just developer code for good luck, you're screwed? To make matters worse, my massive dragon breath had only dealt a pitiful 30,000 damage to him. It made zero sense. Thankfully, I had my Omnivision cheat active. Digging into his kit, I immediately found the culprit in his passive traits, Immortal Body. The description read, reduces all incoming non-holy damage by 50%, caps maximum damage taken from a single instance at 9,999 points, and regenerates 5,000 HP per second. Wow. That passive is absolutely toxic. No wonder my nuke only tickled his health bar. Honestly, it's a miracle I spent yesterday power leveling my wind spells, because otherwise I'd have zero counters for this dude today. Before this, I low-key hated wind magic because the base damage felt weak, but now the meta had shifted. When you're facing a boss with a rigid damage cap per hit, multi-strike wind attacks are literal gold. I started chanting my newly evolved tier 7 wind spell, 1,000 Thunderous Orchids. Even though I still had 2 charges of my instant cast passive ready to go, I wanted to see how long the manual cast time would take under my current buffs. As I chanted, the sky turned into an absolute horror movie. This aggressive casting completely triggered the Necromancer Knight. He raised his dark broadsword toward the clouds and let out a guttural roar. Instantly, the black tide of plague water rushed back in and thousands of undead mobs crawled out of the dirt, answering his call. He slammed his giant sword down, launching a terrifying arc of necromantic energy straight up at me. His signature skill, sky-shattering underworld slash. The power was insane. I could literally hear the air tearing with a low, violent hum. But I didn't panic at all. My manual chant was already done. Thanks to my Eternal Divine Grace passive, this massive tier 7 spell finished casting in under 10 seconds. The next moment, a cataclysmic localized hurricane plummeted from the heavens, completely swallowing his sky-shattering slash. Then I pointed my finger again, double casting into the storm. The wind pressure violently doubled in size. Down on the ground, the surviving players were losing their minds. They were whispering, "Bro, this Archmage is chaining tier 7 spells like basic attacks. What kind of god tier build is this?" Up in the air, I didn't stop. I burned every single instant cast cooldown I had saved up for the day, throwing 3 consecutive 1,000 thunderous orchid storms right at him. I was genuinely terrified that a level 200 mutated boss could tank through 1, but 3 back-to-back apocalypse tier hurricanes? Dude, if you don't die from this, I am literally uninstalling the game and running away. Turns out, I was worrying way too much. Above the Necromancer Knight's head, a dense, overlapping waterfall of damage numbers started formatting in real time. The individual numbers weren't massive, mostly just chunks of 1,000 or 2,000, with crits hitting around 2,000 or 3,000. But the hit rate frequency was absolutely toxic. After just the first wave of the storm, the boss's HP bar was already sitting at 1/3. The next 2 consecutive hurricanes didn't even give his passive healing code a chance to boot up. His remaining health was instantly deleted at light speed. A glorious system message popped up. Congratulations, you have slain the mutated world boss, 1-star Necromancer Knight Rivendell. You have earned 2,200,000 XP, underlevel completion bonus plus 1,500,000 XP, earned 2,000 basic credits, 20 redeemable faction points, and leveled up 5 times. Congratulations, you have obtained the special quest item, Heart of the Undead King. Your class advancement quest is complete. Please return to the Bureau to submit. I slowly descended back to Earth. Looking at the exact coordinate where the boss and his horse had been vaporized, I found a massive pile of shiny gold tier gear, with one piece radiating a majestic platinum aura. Next to the loot pile lay 2 rare skill books. I vacuumed all the treasures into my inventory, procced Swift Wind Wings again, and became a green blur heading straight back to the city. A few minutes later, I walked back into the class advancement center to turn in the quest. The receptionist behind the glasses looked at me completely flabbergasted and said, "Wait, we literally just saw each other an hour and a half ago, right? How the hell did you clear an S-rank trial this fast?" I just gave her a casual shrug. She led me into the main chamber housing the Class Awakening spiritual crystals. I walked up to the floating rock and slapped both hands onto it. System, class advancement successful. You have evolved into the Ultimate Mage. You have unlocked the new skills, Ice Shard and Mana Shield. I bit my tongue. Wow, the RNG in this game is still absolute trash. On our planet, Fire and Weapon Mastery are the cookie-cutter meta builds for mages. But honestly, I wasn't even mad about rolling Ice Shard and Mana Shield, because with my cheat code active, even a trash tier skill becomes an illegal weapon. Now that I was officially a tier 2 professional, I opened my character sheet and dumped every single free attribute point I got from power leveling directly into my spiritual stat. Tier 7 spells are absolute mana hogs, and I don't even want to think about the blue bar requirements for tier 8 or forbidden spells. I'm definitely not trying to get caught out with 0 mana in the middle of a fight. Thanks to the massive XP drop from the mutated boss and the collateral damage from clearing thousands of his ads, none of that extra experience was wasted once my level cap unlocked. I aggressively power leveled another 9 times. My total mana pool exploded to nearly 40,000 points. Now, even if my passive Mana Storm freecast proc is on cooldown, I have enough base mana to manually chain 3 or 4 high-tier spells back to back. I squeeze my fist, feeling a wave of hype for the upcoming National Professional exam. I can't wait to see which Ivy League university is going to try and beg me to join their server. Back in my bedroom, I dumped all my loot onto the bed to run an inventory check. I had bagged about a dozen pieces of gear, 8 or 9 silver tier pieces, 3 gold tier items, and finally the jackpot platinum tier black broadsword the Necromancer Knight was holding. It was class locked to warriors and knights, featuring a special passive effect, Plague Corruption. Weapons with unique passive traits are never cheap on the black market, but I couldn't just list it on the public auction house. The local government has incredibly strict algorithmic tracking on high-tier professional gear. Thankfully, the authorities have an official recycling channel where the Bureau buys back god-tier drops for high payout. The problem is, I have absolutely no way to explain to the government how a level 12 rookie solo farmed a level 200 mutated boss. I decided to hoard the gear in my personal space vault until my public level is high enough to sell it without triggering an audit. Finally, I pulled out the 2 skill scrolls which were the real high-value assets. The first one was Explosive Hammer, a balanced offensive-defensive skill that would easily fetch a high price. But when I looked at the second book, my inner nerd went completely wild. It was a mage summoning spell, Summon Skeleton Soldier, a literal necromancy skill. Necromancies is one of the rarest, most gate-kept subclasses in the entire mage archetype. I immediately smashed the learn button. Instead of a ding, a cold clinical error message popped up. Learning failed. Your current class archetype does not align with the orthodox magic system of this skill. To bypass this restriction and force learn, you must consume additional materials to trigger a magical essence breakthrough. I blinked at the screen. A magical essence breakthrough? What kind of paywall nonsense is that? No matter how much I googled it in my brain, I couldn't find any info on this breakthrough nonsense. But I wasn't sweating it. Even if I force learned a necromancy skill right now, I didn't have enough spare change in my skill point bank to max it out anyway. Later that day, I hit up the Gene City Treasure Pavilion and liquidated all my extra gear for a sweet 500,000 credits. While cashing out, the shop owner let it slip that there's only one real way to get a magical essence breakthrough. You either have to join the Elite Professionals Alliance or a government-backed mega guild, and then grind your life away to trade in faction merit points. But hey, there's a shortcut for the overachievers. If you get recruited by a top-tier Ivy League university or absolutely crush the National College entrance exam, the government will hand you a breakthrough core as a graduation gift. The second I left the shop, I headed towards school while aggressively spamming my talent's new pay-to-win feature. While swipe purchasing the 24-hour AFK package 6 times in a row, I raked in over 500,000 fresh skill points. Combining that with my previous savings, my bank account was sitting pretty at over 800,000 points. I opened my skill tree and looked at my options. If fire magic is all about raw DPS and wind magic is about attack speed, then ice magic is the ultimate crowd control hack. I clicked on Ice Shard and mass upgraded it straight to tier 7, mutating it into a new spell called Absolute Soul Lock. This bad boy completely freezes the target's soul in eternal ice, rendering them totally unable to move or cast spells for a literally infinite duration. While it deals 0 damage, it converts a temporary stun into a permanent status condition, as long as nobody hits them with a fire spell. It's an infinite stun lock. Next, I checked out the passive skill I got from my tier 2 advancement, Mana Shield. Normally, it just absorbs 10% of incoming damage by burning your mana instead of your health. But after I dumped a mountain of points into it, this basic survival tool evolved into a tier 7 passive, Immortal Law Body. Effect 1, 40% of all incoming damage is tanked by your mana bar. Effect 2, you gain massive damage reduction against any element you have a high affinity with. Effect 3, if you take a hit that would literally delete your HP bar to 0, the damage is completely absorbed by your mana instead. Cooldown 30 days. Talk about absolute tank status. Not only does it give me massive damage reduction, but it literally gives me a cheat death mechanic once a month. This skill provided maximum psychological safety. Before this, my squishiness was my biggest liability, but now, good luck trying to kill me. After maxing out my 2 new tier 2 skills, I still had over 500,000 skill points burning a hole in my pocket, which was more than enough to elevate one of my tier 7 active spells to tier 8. While weighing my options, I arrived at the principal's office. When the old man saw me walk in, a look of profound relief washed over his face, and he said, "Son, I am so glad to see you finally process the trauma of your tragic awakening ceremony. I didn't bother correcting his fanfiction and just asked, Principal Zhu, I heard the head teacher had an urgent matter regarding my career future. What's the play? Zhu Qian's face went dead serious. He explained that earlier this morning, a freak surge of abyssal energy erupted in the low-level grinding zone outside the city, forcing open a live-action reality trial dungeon. The catch? The instance only permits mage classes to enter. I stroked my chin and asked, all right, Principal, what's the loot look like if I clear it? Zhu Qian replied, the clear reward is a unique title, Abyss Defier. The title itself gives 0 stat buffs, but you can think of it as a skeleton key or a VIP badge. It's the official qualification required to enter the actual Abyss later in the game. He added that the rules for this mage trial were shockingly simple. You just had to survive inside the instance for 3 hours. No kill counts, no boss requirements, just outlast the timer. After our chat, the principal escorted me straight to the dungeon portal. But when we got there, the crowd was so massive you couldn't even see the entrance. It looked like a line for a hype sneaker drop. Suddenly, a collective gasp erupted near the portal. I looked over and saw the school beauty, Jania, stumbling out of the exit looking completely traumatized. The second she saw her grandfather, Alliance President Jean Xuan, she broke down in tears. Grandpa, my uncle didn't make it out, she sobbed. There are way too many mobs inside. It's an endless swarm and you can't kill them fast enough. The second you try to camp a spot, a wave just spawns on your head. There's literally nowhere to hide on the map. At the final moment, Uncle handed us 4 dungeon escape scrolls, drew all the aggro himself, and let us get away. Jean Xuan and the principal went dead silent, feeling a cold sweat break out. You have to understand, this instance is hard locked to mages only. There are no swole tank classes to hold aggro, and no priest classes to spam heals. Looking at the data, this thing was easily a nightmare difficulty instance. Right then, players were constantly getting force teleported out of the portal, groaning, crying, and screaming for medics. Countless casualties were covered in blood, making the scene look like a premium horror movie. This was the elite first wave that had confidently marched in, now completely broken. Principal Zhu stood next to me smiling bitterly. We botched the raid prep. Not only did we completely miscalculate the dungeon tier, but we don't even have a strategy guide. I am so sorry, Miss Jania. The old principal looked like he aged 20 years in 20 seconds, completely drowning in self-loathing. But while everyone else was busy having an existential crisis, I casually stepped right through the dungeon barrier. Principal Zhu didn't even realize what happened until I was gone, instantly breaking out in cold sweat. What a maniac! Knowing it was a nightmare tier death trap, this kid still chose to solo queue. The surrounding students started whispering that I was actively committing suicide. To them, a level 1 rookie who just finished his first class transition entering this kind of instance without a party was pure delusion. Meanwhile, the second they crossed the light barrier, the system interface chimed. You have entered a special trial instance, the Chrono City of Hell. I opened my eyes and found myself standing in pitch black darkness. There wasn't a single star visible in the night sky, just a massive blood-red moon hanging directly above me like a giant glowing target. Even though the lighting conditions out here were absolutely horrific, I could still see everything in high definition thanks to my broken OmniVision hack. My quest tracker popped up on my UI. Trial objective: survive for 3 hours in Hell City. Time remaining, 2 hours, 59 minutes, 49 seconds. Then a friendly system tip appeared right underneath it. Pro tip: if possible, stop your heart and stop breathing. He hates noise. Reading that, I instantly did some tactical analysis. Okay, so these mobs locate players based on audio cues. For any normal, sane player trying to clear this trial, avoiding combat and playing hide and seek is obviously the meta strategy. But I'm built different, my friends. You can't just hide from the dark. You gotta use fire. As long as I delete every single one of you from the server, I won't have to hide or run from anyone. A brilliant fiery glow erupted from my fingertips. I locked onto the target and instant cast Flamestorm, my tier 4 fire type AoE spell, spamming it 3 times in a row with a literal battle cry. The 5 or 6 shadow monsters that had just tried to encircle me were instantly deleted from existence. But a split second later, I heard even more creepy whispers echoing from the darkness, closing in fast. I raised my hand again, and after a lightning fast manual chant, I summoned my favorite pocket tank bodyguard, the Molten Flame Demon. While my giant demon bro was holding the fort, I opened up my skill tree interface with full intention to commit some serious pay-to-win upgrade crimes. My target this time was my tier 8 fire spell. I smashed the button, burning a whopping 500,000 skill points in one go. System: your heavenly flame breath has evolved. You have unlocked the tier 8 fire spell, Fire Spirit Incarnation. Cast time: instant, cooldown 3 days. Buff description: you gain 100% immunity to all physical damage and 100% immunity to all fire type damage. You gain hyper speed flight capabilities. While in this state, your fire type spells gain a flat 100% critical strike chance. Your critical strike damage is amplified by 100%, and you completely bypass 50% of the target's magic resistance. Furthermore, all spells that usually require manual chanting become instant casts and cost exactly 0 mana. Duration: 3 minutes. Special action: you can manually detonate all active fire elements on the field to trigger a catastrophic supernova. Holy crap! This skill is absolutely disgusting. This is literally an endgame incandescence class transformation buff. With a single thought, a deep blue flame erupted at the tips of my fingers, and within seconds, both of my arms were burning violently. I could literally feel myself becoming the element of fire itself. At that exact moment, the ground beneath me started swarming as an endless horde of shadow demons rushed my position. But they couldn't even manage to let out a proper death rattle. The second I completed my supreme sublimation, the surrounding mobs were instantly vaporized into clean steam, because the atmospheric temperature of the entire city suddenly spiked like a broken thermostat. Every single shadow demon and dark entity on the map went completely feral. I launched myself directly into the sky. The flight speed granted by this fire spirit form was easily on par with my tier 5 swift wing wings build. But because I had aggressively raised the temperature of the entire zone and illuminated the darkness like a mini sun, the apex predator sleeping beneath the city was thoroughly triggered. After a deafening, reality-shattering crash, a massive pitch-black claw erupted from the dirt, stabbing directly toward my blue fireball silhouette in the clouds. However, the exact millisecond it touched me, the claw was instantly roasted into a stick of black charcoal by my passive aura. This completely enraged the giant entity hiding underground. An earthquake ripped through the map, and 8 massive glowing scarlet eyes lit up from the dark abyss below. It was a colossal, mountain-sized spider made of concentrated nightmare shadows. My omnivision scanned it. This boss's level was a whopping 20 tiers higher than the mutated necromancer knight I fought yesterday, and its base stats completely embarrassed him. Under normal circumstances, casual players entering this trial would never encounter a raid boss of this caliber. It was solely because my presence was so ridiculously loud that I aggroed the map boss. Well, if I kill it, the dungeon should count as cleared, right? With my transformation timer sitting at roughly 1.5 minutes, I extended an open hand, aimed it squarely at the giant demon spider lurking in the abyss, and snapped my fingers to trigger the manual detonate. Instantly, every fire element in the atmosphere amplified by 1,000,000%. The entire temperature of Hell City skyrocketed into millions of degrees Fahrenheit. The shadow spider let out an agonizing metallic shriek as its massive HP bar started draining at a speed visible to the naked eye. Millions of health points were getting deleted in the blink of an eye. The boss desperately tried to burrow back into the dirt to escape the blast zone, but it was way too late. The supreme sublimation explosion detonated. A blinding globe of azure light, looking exactly like a tactical nuclear warhead, expanded across the map, swallowing the entirety of Hell City. Countless shadow demons were vaporized in a single blinding flash. Dark blue, hyper-temperature flames blanketed every single square inch of the dungeon instance. I stared at the destruction, utterly shocked by my own DPS. Tier 8 fire magic is just too explosive. Honestly, my old heavenly dragon spell looks like a basic sparkler compared to this. Suddenly, I realized this custom combo didn't have a cool name yet. I dug through my brain for a solid pop culture reference that matched this level of map-wiping disrespect, and remembered that one scene where the 6 paths of pain raided the Hidden Leaf Village. A smug smile spread across my face. From this day forward, this technique is officially called Fire Style. Almighty mighty push. The system notifications flooded my vision. Ding! Congratulations! You have successfully cleared the Chrono City of Hell trial dungeon. You have unlocked the secret true ending of this instance by slaying the high-tier hidden boss, the Abyssal Shadowstalker. You have been awarded the unique server first title, Conqueror of the Abyss. From this day forward, your name will be immortalized on the Blue Planet Abyss leaderboards. I had to laugh. My casual test run literally broke the entire dungeon code. But hey, on the bright side, because I completely vaporized the instance, I accidentally saved Jania's second uncle, who had been trapped inside the meat grinder. Talk about win-win. The screen flashed white, and I was officially teleported back to the real world. When I opened my eyes, I was already back outside Johnny's city, standing on the lush green grass. At that exact moment, the entire crowd guarding the dungeon portal collectively lost their minds. I had entered that death trap less than 3 minutes ago. How the hell was I out already? Wait, who was that cradled in my arms like a newborn baby? Why did his character model look so familiar? Johnny let out a piercing shriek. Second uncle! That's when it clicked for everyone. I had actually pulled off a rescue mission. Janya, seeing that her uncle hadn't been permanently deleted from the server, instantly started crying a river. While wiping her face, she mumbled a very reluctant thank you. I couldn't help but smirk and tease her, remarking that it wasn't easy hearing those two words come out of her mouth. For the past 3 years at school, Janya had been the ultimate icy, untouchable queen. Smiling at me was against her religion, let alone saying thank you. She got so mad she stamped her foot, completely layout scrambled, that I had the audacity to troll her at an emotional time like this. Right then, the principal walked over to give me a comforting pat on the back, explaining that failing to stay inside for the full 3 hours meant I failed the trial. I didn't bother explaining my methodology. Instead, the next second, a server-wide system announcement completely detonated over the entire region. To everyone's absolute horror, the banner read, "Congratulations to player Lin for clearing the hidden ending of the special trial instance, the Chrono City of Hell. Clear time, 2 minutes and 42 seconds. Clear grade, S rank. Effective immediately, this instance is permanently locked and retired from the server. The record holder's name will be transferred directly to the Global Hall of Fame." Everyone froze. They looked at me like I was a literal glitch in the Matrix. The principal stood there completely paralyzed. He knew I had some juice, but he didn't realize I was running developer cheats. Not only did I speedrun a nightmare instance, but I cracked the Blue Planet's global leaderboard. As of right now, across the entire planet, fewer than 1,000 names are engraved in that Hall of Fame. It's the ultimate endgame flex for any professional. And here I was, an 18-year-old kid, casually breaking world records on a Tuesday. Suddenly, I was being stared down by every high-level scout in the area like I was a 5-star recruit. A representative from the prestigious Tian Shui Academy pushed through the crowd, shouting that they could offer me a full-ride special admission slot right now. The crowd gasped. Tian Shui Academy is the second best university in the province and a top 100 school nationwide. Even the principal nodded approvingly, whispering that these special quota slots are incredibly rare and only handed out by elite tier 1 institutions. He told me Tian Shui was an amazing program and that I should accept the offer before they changed their minds. Just as everyone assumed I was going to instantly sign the contract, I gave the scout a flat, casual, no thanks. This time, even the scout was thrown off. In his mind, offering a rookie a full ride was an act of supreme institutional charity. His face darkened as he warned me to think carefully, snapping that this might be the only opportunity of your entire life. Hearing that corporate pitch, I couldn't help but laugh out loud. I looked him dead in the eye and told him that if he had left a better first impression, I might have actually considered his school, adding that getting me on their roster was actually the only opportunity of their lives. The principal's heart skipped a beat. Damn, those words were incredibly arrogant, but watching a high and mighty university scout get publicly ratioed was inexplicably satisfying. The scout gave me a long, calculating look before turning on his heel and leaving the area. Over the next 10 days, I didn't even bother going outside to grind. The main reason was that the local leveling zones and dungeons around Johnny City were simply too low tier to hold my aggro anymore. While the rest of my classmates were aggressively cramming for the exams and paying for premium prep courses, I literally just couch potatoed at home for nearly 2 weeks. Eventually, I went out to liquidate the massive pile of resources I had hoarded in my vault, and my phone instantly vibrated with a bank alert. The text read, "Your account has received a wire transfer of 749,680 yuan. My liquid savings had officially crossed 1 million yuan. Right on cue, a system notification flashed in my vision. Detection. Bank balance has exceeded 1,000 credits. Your SSS Rank Divine Thorn Talent has unlocked a new feature. My heart did a little flip of excitement as I aggressively tapped open my talent interface to see what broken mechanic the game was giving me next. Skill Evolution. You can spend 1 million Blue Star credits and the corresponding skill points to evolve a tier 8 or higher skill into an upgraded version of the same rank, heavily boosting its raw power and extra effects. Wow, my talent literally just turned into a pay-to-win mobile game. Not only does throwing money around speed up my skill point acquisition, but now I can straight up pay to evolve my kit. I pulled up my character profile and scanned the skill point column. Available skill points, 974,639. The daily free allowances I had accumulated over the last 10 days had almost reached the 1 million mark. I still hadn't forgotten that modest little goal I set for myself during my awakening ceremony a month ago, to push the basic fireball spell to its absolute physical limits. Now that target was well within arm's reach. Should I swipe my card right now just to speed things up? I opened the cash shop interface. When I saw that spending 100,000 Daxia yuan would only net me about 80,000 skill points, I gritted my teeth. That's a conversion rate of over 1 yuan per skill point. Nope, hard pass. I can't keep wailing like this, otherwise the cool million sitting in my bank account is going to vanish real quick. By that evening, I checked my status again. My skill point balance had officially crossed into 7-figure territory. I loaded up my skills and hovered over the interface for my tier 8 Fire Spirit incarnation. The prompt flashed, spend 1 million skill points to elevate this skill to tier 9? Without a shred of hesitation, I hit the macro. Click. 1 million points vanished instantly. System. Your Fire Spirit incarnation has evolved to tier 9, Cataclysmic Flame Deity. But honestly, this wasn't even the endgame. I took a sneak peek at what the next tier looked like. The tier after this was a literal ancient forbidden spell, but the upgrade requirement was a casual 100 million points. Now things were getting interesting. Even if the future requirements climbed into the hundreds of millions, for a guy with my passive generation, that just meant waiting a couple of years. For now though, my goal was to master every single elemental archetype in the game and max them all out. The next morning, I arrived at the regional testing center to sit for the national professional exam. Outside the arena, a booming voice broadcast over the PA system. Attention, all candidates. The 2024 Unified National College Professional Entrance Exam is about to begin. Please line up and pass through the security gates one by one. This exam will dynamically provide difficulty options based on each candidate's registered level. The moment I stepped through the gate, a glowing gold star icon materialized above my head. The entire lobby erupted into chaotic whispers. Holy crap, he's a gold star tier. Bro is a certified raid boss. Someone ask him for a carry. Right on cue, a female proctor rushed over to guide me. I followed her down the hall and soon arrived at a massive pair of double doors labeled Exam Entrance Number 1. There were already about 20 people hovering outside. Every single one of them had a matching gold star floating over their heads. These were clearly the elite trust fund prodigies bred by top-tier wealthy clans and high-ranking legacy families. However, the second these high society players noticed a new face in the queue, the elitist trash-talking started. A candidate from Gene City? What kind of backwater starter town is that? Never heard of it. Is there a bug in the security gate? How did a godforsaken flyover zone manage to produce a gold star candidate? I completely ignored their clowning and walked right past them to the registration desk to log my data. Just as I reached out to touch the scanning bell, an incredibly pompous voice sneered from behind me. Hey little bro, wasn't easy grinding all the way to level 25, was it? Just some friendly advice. Don't ego pick nightmare difficulty. The mobs in there will absolutely body you. I turned around casually. The guy talking trash was a dude with bright yellow dyed hair, looking like a budget anime protagonist. He was clearly putting on a show. A few of his cronies standing nearby snickered on cue. Young Master Kai gotta remember there's tiers to gold stars. Not everyone can push level 29 before graduation like you. Yellow hair smirked, clearly feeling himself, but what he actually cared about was flexing in front of the gorgeous girl standing next to him. However, when he turned to look at her, she just stared back with pure, unadulterated disgust. The girl, Lin Ri, said coldly, "Ja Kai, You really don't need to try this hard to get my attention. At the same time, her eyes shifted over to me. The very next second, her jaw completely dropped, because the exact millisecond my hand pressed down on the scanning bell, my true level flashed across the holographic barrier in giant glowing numbers, level 42. The entire hallway went dead silent. Everyone looked like they had just seen a ghost. Zhao Kai stared at that giant 42 blinking on the screen and looked like he had just taken a physical slap to the face. I looked at the proctor and sighed. Miss, I can't select the difficulty. The UI is completely locked up. I wanted to click nightmare mode, but it won't let me submit. Is the system bugged? The proctor snapped out of her trance. Wait, hold on. Let me run a diagnostic. Honestly, she couldn't believe her eyes either. Level 42? What kind of freak of nature anomaly had just walked into her testing center? After desperately clicking through a dozen administrative overrides, beads of sweat were pouring down her face. The system wasn't bugged at all. The reason the difficulty selector was locked was because since the day the exam code was written, the baseline admissions algorithm restricted the difficulty pool to a maximum level cap of 30. In short, my level 42 character model had completely overheated the admission server. Realizing this was way above her pay grade, the proctor sprinted off toward the main command center to report it. Upon receiving the data, the exam board directors went completely silent. The last time they had encountered a candidate with this kind of illegal leveling speed was decades ago. Since another mutant spawned today, they decided to pull strings. Reactivate the legacy difficulty mode, ordered Vice Director Lee. The surrounding staff froze. But Vice Director Lee, that difficulty setting caused way too many fatal accidents back in the day. It's a total meat grinder for high school candidates. Lee shook his head. Times have changed. To a kid like that, nightmare mode is a joke. For the sake of competitive fairness, notify all 22 testing centers in the province. Activate Purgatory Mode simultaneously. Lee's subordinates felt their skin crawl. Sir, if you activate an Abyss adjacent difficulty, anyone without a special Abyss title won't even be allowed to queue up for it. Lee waved his hand dismissively. Then let them flash their titles. Anyone without an authentic Abyss credential will simply be locked out of Purgatory Mode. If that level 42 kid hasn't cleared a secret trial before and doesn't have a title, then just let him stomp Nightmare Mode. There's nothing we can do about it. Lee's word was law, so the staff quickly complied. The proctor immediately received the update and ran back to entrance number 1. Ladies and gentlemen, due to a system override, Purgatory Mode has been unlocked. Candidates who have already registered their difficulty have one chance to change their queue. A second later, the proctor saw 3 hands shoot into the air. Lin Ri raised her right hand with total composure. At the same time, Zhao Kai and one of his hype men also raised theirs. The proctor wasn't surprised. These 3 had the highest recorded levels in the building prior to my arrival, and Zhao Kai and his buddy both piloted incredibly rare classes, while Lin Ri possessed a hidden class. They actually had the mechanical confidence to attempt a Purgatory tier run. The 3 candidates who wish to opt in, please equip your Abyss titles. Once verified, I will adjust your instance difficulty to Purgatory. The next moment, 5 massive dark glowing characters materialize above the heads of the 3 elite students, spelling out their hard-earned veteran achievement titles. The 5 giant dark characters floating over their heads read Abyssal Challenger. Zhao Kai immediately hit me with a smug, provocative side-eye. So what if you have a high level? His look screamed. If you haven't cleared the hardcore class trials, you're still a scrub who can't even opt into Purgatory Mode. Right on cue, the entire lobby turned their heads to look at me. I stood there completely clueless, because when the proctor told us to equip our titles, my inner monologue was just, where the hell is the equip button for this thing? Zhao Kai noticed my hesitation and practically threw a party inside his own mind. Look at him pretend. Keep coping, kid. You obviously don't even have a title, do you? Thankfully, the proctor saved me the embarrassment. Open your character profile, long press your username, and your title inventory will drop down. A light bulb went off in my brain, and I followed her instructions. I quickly found my title column, but my thumb slipped and I accidentally macro-clicked the very first one on the list. The next exact second, a literal flashbang of golden light exploded in front of everyone's retinas. A massive, blinking neon banner materialized above my head. Global Dungeon Hall of Fame record holder. The entire crowd went stiff. Holy crap, my 24-karat gold-plated titanium eyes. What kind of illegal title is that? It looks way too cool. Seeing their absolute meltdown, I was completely bewildered. Why was everyone looking at me like I just dropped a tactical nuke? Did I equip the wrong cosmetic? I rolled my eyes up to read the banner. Oh damn, that is way too loud. This does not fit my humble, low-key main character aesthetic. I gave them a deeply awkward customer service smile. My bad guys, I'm still kind of a boomer with this UI. Equipped the wrong one. I scrambled to open the title menu again. In my mind, titles usually work like gear. If I selected Conqueror of the Abyss, it would naturally override and delete the obnoxious Hall of Fame banner. But I was still way too naive about this game's code. The moment I clicked Conqueror of the Abyss, it didn't replace the golden banner. It stacked right underneath it. Now, a second line of text erupted in a terrifying dark crimson neon glow, radiating a dense aura of black abyssal smoke that literally began to choke out the room's ambient lighting. The edgelord energy was dialed up to a maximum 11 out of 10. The crowd looked like they wanted to report me to the developers. You are toxic. You are doing this on purpose. How does this guy have multiple ultra-rare server-first titles? The Hall of Fame banner was something they'd at least heard of in forums. It was the ultimate dream flex for every sweat on the Blue Star server. But this new, sinister-looking Conqueror title that was actively casting a shadow over the room? What even was that? Why are the rest of us just challengers while this dude is already a literal conqueror? Watching them look like they were about to uninstall, I was speechless. I genuinely wanted to be low-key. The proctor was sweating through her uniform at this point. Standing in front of an 18-year-old god, she realized her official authority had officially dropped to 0. Candidate, the title on your head definitely qualifies you for Purgatory Mode. Honestly, I've never even seen that tier of achievement before. Speaking of which, the proctor was starting to develop a serious inferiority complex. She had already procced her 4th class advancement, but she still had zero clue how to unlock a Conqueror title. Silently, I unequipped the blinding 24k gold Hall of Fame title to minimize the drama and gave her a casual, yeah, let's lock in Purgatory. Zhao Kai looked like he had just been diagnosed with clinical depression. He was convinced that the person standing next to him wasn't an 18-year-old student, but an endgame abyssal raid boss disguised in a human skin suit. Lin Ri, on the other hand, couldn't take her eyes off me. Handsome, broken DPS, and shrouded in mystery. The exact trinity of traits that make high-tier guild girls weak in the knees. Even a pampered, top-ranking legacy prodigy like her couldn't help but feel a wave of intense admiration and respect. Right on cue, the server-wide PA system boomed. Attention all examinees. The 2024 National College Professional Entrance Exam will commence in exactly 5 minutes. All candidates, please enter your respective dungeon portals. The next second, everyone was pulled into the light barrier. After a brief loading screen of pure darkness, I opened my eyes and found myself standing in a limitless, blindingly white matrix space. The dungeon AI chimed directly into my brain. Candidate Lin, in exactly 1 minute, a target dummy will spawn in front of you, a level 30 goblin. It will remain completely stationary and harmless. Please delete it from the server as fast as humanly possible. The lower your time to kill, the higher your placement score. Hearing the mechanics, I blinked in complete confusion, followed by a profound wave of disappointment. You guys call this Purgatory Mode? The exact millisecond the level 30 goblin rendered into the matrix, I casually raised a hand and flicked a basic fireball at it. Back in the real world, the administrative observer staring at the lobby's master monitor went completely catatonic. The clock showed it took me exactly 2.36 seconds to completely delete the mob. What kind of math was that? The other elite trust fund kids had barely managed to chunk their goblin for half health in that time, and I had already one-shotted it out of the code. Meanwhile, sitting in my isolated Matrix instance, I was already getting bored. About 20 seconds later, the regional leaderboard updated in real time, flashing the roster. Rank 1, Candidate Lin. Clearance time, 2.36 seconds. Score, 1,000 points. Rank 2, candidate Kui Sheng, clearance time 23.27 seconds, score 877.6 points. Outside the #1 testing center in Tianhe City, the massive holographic billboard displaying live exam stats had thousands of spectators screaming. Look at rank 1. Who the hell is candidate Lin? He's leading by an absolute country mile. A dark horse candidate has completely hijacked the first round of the exam. Dark horse? Bro, that's not a dark horse. That's a literal Pegasus descending from the heavens. Back inside the secure observation deck, one of the proctors nervously cleared his throat and turned to his superior to ask a question.
Vice Director Li, is this kid's 1,000 points considered a perfect score for this round? Liu Jing nodded. If you delete that goblin monster in under 10 seconds, it's coded as a perfect score. I actually wrote that specific rule myself back in the day. Honestly, I hasn't seen a perfect score on Purgatory difficulty in years. Suddenly, the main screen in the conference room flashed. The system was broadcasting my first round performance on a loop. Everyone was dying to know how I had cleared the trial in a literal blink of an eye. After watching the standard playback, the entire room was left completely dumbfounded. "Run that back," Liu Jing ordered, looking slightly existential. As the replay started, he added, "Slow it down to maximum lag." With the video set to slow-mo, the board members finally saw the absolute disrespect clearly. The exact millisecond the goblin rendered into the matrix, 5 or 6 massive fireballs, each the size of a commercial kitchen sink, instantly materialized in front of me. These fireballs barraged the target dummy in a rapid-fire burst like a fully automatic minigun. The goblin's HP bar was erased from the server in under 2 seconds flat. "That's Flame Burst, the tier 2 fire mage skill," someone whispered. "But how on earth is he spamming it that fast with 0 cooldown?" There's only one logical explanation. This kid's Flame Burst is an instant cast. He must have unlocked a broken passive talent alongside his base class. Right then, everyone's eyes glued back to the screen. While all the legacy prodigies in Dongjiang were sweating through their shirts and trying their absolute hardest, I was casually sitting on the floor of my digital instance, bored out of my mind, drawing little circles in the dust with my finger. I seriously thought the National College exam on Purgatory Mode would force me to lock in and try. Who would have thought it'd be about as challenging as playing with an iPad? The second round spawns 20 to 1,000 goblins? Are you guys trolling me? One basic flame cyclone and they'd all be logged out of life. Seeing me look completely checked out on the monitor, a bunch of the high-level officials in the center laughed. Liu Jing stared at the screen and couldn't help but complain. "Wait, don't tell me he doesn't have any massive AoE spells in his kit." He sighed a bit, assuming that was my bottleneck. This theory was immediately embraced by a lot of people in the room. After all, on paper, this kid was just a standard mage class. He couldn't compete with the rare hidden classes, let alone touch the legendary ones. The next second, all the testing dungeons refreshed, spawning 20 goblins per instance. But right then, an insanely bright, blinding reddish crimson light flashed across the main monitor at headquarters. A massive roaring heat wave blanketed the screen as a blinding residual flare plummeted from the sky like a tactical meteor, slamming directly into the group of 20 mobs. The goblins didn't even get a chance to aggro, they literally melted out of the code. This time, Vice Director Li bolted straight out of his chair, his eyes popping out of his head. The leaderboard updated instantly. Rank 1, Examinee 001. Round 2 cleared. Score 1,000 points. Time 10.1 seconds. The high-ranking Dongjiang official stared open-mouthed. A few of them even dropped straight-up F-bombs right in front of the director, their usual polite, professional, corporate personas completely disintegrating in a second. Li took a deep breath, trying to stabilize his heart rate, and waved his hand. "Go dig through our national databases. Look at over 600 years of college entrance exam history. What is the absolute all-time historical speed record for the second round on Purgatory difficulty?" The assistant nodded like a hyped-up fanboy. "On it, sir." He clearly realized they were witnessing a kid rewrite the entire history of the server. However, Li quickly called him back. "Have the anti-cheat and monitoring teams run a deep diagnostic. Is there a technical glitch with that instance? Did he find an unpatched bug?" Also, audit his character status sheet and his inventory slot to ensure he's not running an illegal mod menu. It didn't take long for the tech support team to ping back. "Sir, tech support checked the logs twice. There are 0 anomalies. His character data and the dungeon metrics are completely green. He earned that score purely through raw, unadulterated DPS." The reporting assistant was visibly shaking with excitement. Lee's mood was skyrocketing, and the next update from his team made him grin from ear to ear. "Vice Director Lee, we checked the tower's legacy archives. During the national exam a century ago, a candidate cleared the second round of Purgatory Mode in a record-holding 10.48 seconds. No one has touched that record in 100 years. And fun fact, the player who set that legacy record was named Zhang Ying Hao." Hearing that name, the entire conference room collectively gasped. Lee was stunned. Zhang Ying Hao, as in the 21st god of war of our entire server? The assistant nodded aggressively. Lee felt a rush of adrenaline. He knew he was geeking out a bit too much, but his eyes were shining as he stared at the giant monitor. This kid is creating history for our region. Just then, an elderly board member, Director Chui, cleared his throat. To be completely honest, looking at the math, this raw scoring system is actually a bit unfair to him. "Why do you say that?" Lee asked. Chui pointed a finger at the score matrix in the top right corner. "Look closely at the data. He hit the absolute hard cap for a perfect score, but his actual clearance time is so far ahead of the curve that the current point system can't even calculate his actual value." Lee stared at the column and instantly caught Chui's drift. He let out a bitter laugh. "Yeah, it's a bit unfair, but the scoring algorithm is standardized nationwide. I mean, I literally helped write the amendment for the evaluation system. But who among us could have predicted that a kid with this kind of illegal, lore-breaking damage output would actually spawn one day?" Director Kui Gugwan grinned. "Whatever, man. High-tier players are just built different. Based on what he's put on the scoreboard so far, Dongjong is taking the regional trophy home this year. Rank 1 is practically gift wrap for him. But seriously, how do you think he clocked that ridiculous 2.36 second clear? What spell did he even cast?" He leaned forward, answering his own question. It was a tier 4 fire spell, Flamestorm. The standard channel time for that spell is a solid 5 seconds, but this absolute madman cast it instantly. Kui Gugwan's breakdown immediately caused a massive uproar in the room, snapping everyone back to reality. Sure, on paper, this kid was just a standard mage vanilla build, but you can't judge a player's total combat rating just by their base class icon. You have to factor in broken passive talents and illegal gear synergies. But the next second, as the board members glanced back at the center of the main monitor, the corners of their mouths twitched violently. There I was, casually sitting on the digital floor of my instance, unbothered, happily inhaling a massive rotisserie chicken leg. Even though the dungeon UI was blinking red with a warning that round 2 was cleared and round 3 was booting up in exactly 60 seconds, my stress levels were at absolute zero. I was just chilling, listening to the announcer read out the round 3 mechanics. And honestly, round 3 finally sounded like a real challenge. The first 2 rounds were just basic burst tests for single target and AoE DPS. This round was a full-on sustained endgame damage output test. I did some quick mental theory crafting. Since the Goblin Giant has an infinite HP bar, the only way to maximize my score within the tight time limit was to solve the mana efficiency and sustained DPS equation. 10 seconds to launch. The Goblin Giant rendered onto the field. The next moment, a massive emerald tornado materialized right on top of the giant's head. The wind pressure condensed into razor-sharp physical blades, aggressively shredding the boss's skin and flesh. Tier 4 wind magic, Tempest Cyclone. The reason I locked in this specific spell was because it offers the highest total tick damage value per single cast in a long-term raid scenario. The individual tick damage is low-key garbage, but it strikes incredibly fast and lasts forever. Once you spawn a Tempest Cyclone, it takes a full 30 minutes to despawn, and since the Goblin Giant is just a heavy, stationary meat sack designed to stand there and take a beating, he was about to eat every single tick of that 30-minute duration. Exploiting this exact baseline mechanic, I just kept spamming Tempest Cyclones. 5, 10, 20. The sheer number of hurricanes engulfing the giant multiplied at a terrifying speed. Soon, dozens of cyclones were triggering simultaneously on his hitbox. The hit rate frequency per second was mathematically toxic. This spectacular visual display completely paralyzed the observers at headquarters. But suddenly, a massive glitch hit the leaderboard.
My total damage score, which was securely sitting at rank 1, instantly rolled back to 0. My name completely vanished from the ladder. The entire conference room noticed the anomaly immediately, but what they saw next on the main screen made them lose their minds. The colossal, mountain-sized goblin giant slowly stiffened and collapsed into a heap of dead code. Alert! An unprecedented system anomaly has occurred in candidate Lin's instance. The boss monster, programmed with infinite health, has been slain. Vice Director Lee's forehead creased. What the hell is going on? Which code block just crashed? Run a diagnostic right now. Every single IT tech and system admin in the center broke out into a freezing cold sweat. They knew damn well that if a national exam server crashed during a live stream, it would be a catastrophic administrative disaster. However, the hardware logs came back completely green. No bugs, no glitches. Everyone was completely stumped. Suddenly, Cui Gogwan's eyes widened as if he'd just cracked the matrix. Wait a minute, Lee, is the monster code you guys generated actually infinite? Lee shook his head. Of course not. If it had true mathematical infinity, the asset would be invincible and break the server logic. The Goblin Giant has an infinite HP status condition, but there is technically a termination trigger. But honestly, I don't even know what the exact variable is. Cui Gogwan fell into a deep silence for a moment, and then his face lit up. I get it. If my hypothesis is correct, this kid just pulled off another miracle. He just set a record that will literally never be broken. He's the first player on the server to beat the invincible boss. Did you find the source code error? Lee barked at his tech lead, but the tech lead could only stutter that the server loop was running completely fine. As for how a tier 1 rookie deleted an immortal asset, they had zero technical explanation. Lee wasn't even mad. The bizarre details coming out of the server logs only validated his and Twee's wild theories. This was officially above their pay grade. Lee grabbed his secure line. Route the logs to the Capital Guild headquarters. Let the high commands handle the audit. The core source code and foundational logic of the national exam instances can only be manipulated by them anyway. By this time, there were only 2.5 minutes left on round 3 clock. Finally, Lee and Cui Gogwan received the high priority encrypted ping back from the Ministry of Education in the capital. Reporting, Vice Director, we just received a direct memo from the capital's chief tech architect regarding the instance incident and the official scoring recommendation. The assistant took a breath, reading the monitor. The reason candidate Lin was able to slay the Goblin Giant and trigger the hard-coded Geth animation is due to a legacy variable in the game's underlying architecture. The boss doesn't have infinite health points. It has an infinite hit count max, set at exactly 1 million. Every single time it takes a damage, no matter how small, the counter subtracts 1 point. Once it suffers exactly 1 million individual hits, its true health bar is forced to 0, and the asset plays its death script. The Capital's engineering team reviewed the logs and confirmed the candidate did not use any illegal third-party software or exploits. He literally just achieved a 1,000,000 hit combo via raw attack speed, accidentally triggering the hard-coded execution block. Therefore, the round is scored as a flawless clear, and he's awarded maximum points. The assistant's voice dropped to a nervous whisper. Furthermore, the high command in the capital is extremely interested in this candidate named Lin, and they've ordered us to dual stream his upcoming round 4 performance directly to their war room. Lee and Cui Gogwan froze, and then massive smug grins broke out across their stern faces. At the very last minute of the round 3 countdown, my name rubber banded straight back to the apex of the global leaderboard. Rank 1, Candidate Lin, Sustained DPS, Absolute Overflow. Points awarded, 2,000, hard cap. The entire student body looking at the lobby screens wanted to cry. No one expected me to bounce back onto the ladder, bringing with me a damage score that was mathematically so broken that the system didn't even bother rendering a specific number. Attention, all examinees, round 4 will commence in exactly 30 seconds. The rules for this final phase will now be broadcasted. Hearing the prompt, every single elite prodigy in the testing center turned pale. You have to remember, round 3 had just closed out. After trying to score points against the giant sponge for minutes, virtually every single mage in the province was sitting at exactly 0 mana. Between rounds 3 and 4, the system didn't even grant us a commercial break. The UI flashed as the round 4 rules officially dropped. This phase evaluates your macro management and overall kit viability. In 20 seconds, a Goblin King will spawn. Target stats: 50,000 HP, 1,000 armor, and 1,000
1000 magic resist. This boss does not possess active attacks, but will continuously summon his elite task force. The Goblin Entourage consists of 5 specialized archetypes: Warrior, Mage, Striker, Defender, and Assassin. Time limit, 10 minutes. Your current HP bar will not regenerate during this phase. Scoring is calculated strictly based on your percentage of remaining health upon killing the Goblin King. Reading the prompt, I raise an eyebrow. Alright, this phase actually felt like a real-life raid scenario. It didn't just calculate single target burst or raw AoE capacity. It actively measured a player's mobility and threat adaptation. Cute. Following the system prompt, an obese, visually offensive, crowned Goblin King spawned into every single Purgatory instance on the server. A split second later, a dozen heavily armed elite mobs rendered around him. Almost immediately, players in the other digital instances hit the macro to surrender. Their health bars from the previous hit count marathon had rolled over at exactly 1 HP, and they were now trapped in an arena with a dozen aggressive elite mobs. The dungeon's built-in anti-death mechanism became an absolute torture device, keeping them trapped at 1 HP while the bots ruthlessly spawn camped them. But my instance monitor was an absolute oasis of peace and harmony. Whether it was the Goblin King or his elite bodyguards trying to throw hands, every single asset on my screen was instantly converted into a highly detailed ice sculpture. I locked them down instantly. Back in the command center, Vice Director Lee, who usually piloted fire and wind builds, was hyperventilating. Today's exam had delivered way too many cardiac events and lore-breaking surprises, and on screen, this kid was casually dropping a tier 4 ice spell, Blizzard. Once the mobs were thoroughly CC locked, I decided to put them out of their misery. I aggressively spammed my tier 4 fire AoE, Flamestorm. The thermal shock of extreme frost meeting hyper temperature flames caused a massive explosion of steam, sparks, and ice shards. By the time the second Flamestorm detonated, the dozen elite guards were sitting on a sliver of health. The third blast completely erased him from the server. As for the Goblin King, the fourth explosion shattered his frozen status condition, and his massive health bar took an absolute nosedive. Thanks to my tier 6 shatter passive, breaking an ice lock target with a fire spell instantly chunks their maximum HP pool. So despite having a massive boss health bar compared to his minions, the combination of 4 consecutive flamestorms plus the percentage-based execution damage caused him to let out a metallic screech and flatline on the spot. Barely 30 seconds had ticked off the clock since round 4 booted up, and I had already speedrun the phase with absolute crushing dominance. A dead silence blanketed the administrative boardroom until the moment the Goblin King's asset dissolved. Lee was the first to bolt out of his chair, aggressively applauding, which triggered the rest of the board members to geek out right along with him. A perfect score across 4 consecutive rounds. The kid was a flawless, omnidirectional, hexagonal warrior with 0 mechanical blind spots. The regional top scorer title for this year was already historically locked in. Lee could feel his hands shaking. What we were witnessing wasn't just a candidate breaking a provincial record, he was setting a server precedent. Dongjiang Province had never birthed a mutant of this caliber. And the scariest part, even on Purgatory difficulty, the kid hadn't even been forced to reveal his true endgame build. Meanwhile, at the Tianhe No. 1 testing center, I stepped out of the light barrier. While every other examinee looked like they had just survived a war zone, I looked like I was returning from a spa day. An older gentleman in a high-ranking Department of Education uniform approached me with a massive, proud grin. "Congratulations, Comrade Lin. You have officially secured the top spot in Dongjiang Province with a historically flawless, perfect score." I blinked, slightly confused. "Wait, sir, wasn't there supposed to be a 5th round?" Lee chuckled. "Oh, there is a round 5, but it's not hosted at a standard school testing center. You have to travel directly to regional headquarters for that one. Go get some lunch and take a nap. I'm personally chauffeuring you to HQ this afternoon." The round 5 mechanics involve a specialized instance extracted directly from the live Abyss server. A proctor will give you a full strategy brief once we land. Honestly, I flew out here today mostly just to meet you in person and deliver your regional rewards. I perked up instantly. "Oh word, we're getting paid? Lead the way, Director." Lee gave me a casual wave, but the second I stepped close to him, he whipped out a dark, high-tier teleportation scroll and crushed it. In a literal blink, the high school lobby vanished, and I found myself standing standing inside a heavily reinforced, high-tech underground vault. "Welcome to the Department of Education's secure vault," Lee said, pulling up an administrative tablet. "First, link your professional ID card number so I can route the funding. The bounty for securing rank 1 in our province is a cool 1 million Daxia yuan. I'll have the accounting department wire that directly to your account along with your 1 million scholarship later today." I had to suppress a massive grin. Hell yeah! Capitalism wins again.